called to order concurrently at 6:09 p.m. Pursuant to Executive Order N-25-20 and N-29-20, members of the Planning Commission and staff are participating in this meeting via video link, Zoom, and/or teleconference. This is not an in-person meeting. Members of the public may observe this meeting on the City of Hawthorne website or on YouTube. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Commissioner Caraveo.
Right hand over your heart. Please begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairperson Smith.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Al-Shanable.
Present.
Commissioner Ortiz is absent. Commissioner Caraveo.
Present.
And Commissioner Richard.
Present.
Thank you. This is the time for oral communications. Because this meeting is not an in-person meeting, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to participate by calling or emailing the Planning Department no later than 5:30 p.m. today, noting the item on which the member wants to speak. This information was provided on the agenda posted in compliance with the Brown Act on Friday, June 11th, 2021. At this time, if there were any messages left for oral communication, staff will either read messages on behalf of those individuals who wish to provide written comments for oral communication, or invite members of the public who wish to provide oral comments to speak through the Zoom application. Remarks, whether written or oral, are still limited to 3 minutes in duration. Staff, is there any participation from the public for oral communications? This is the time for the public to address the Planning Commission and the Airport Zoning Commission.
Yes, Chair, we received one email, which I will proceed to read. This is from Megan Mitchell, received on Wednesday, June 16th at 3:48 p.m. It reads, I want to sincerely thank the Commission for their unanimous vote on May 19th that classified the hotel modification interpretation as a modification new project. I am deeply frustrated that the City Council voted to overturn your vote at the June 6th meeting for an applicant that didn't even speak during their own appeal. The residents and our concerns were ignored in the name of special interest. I understand the hunger our city has for the tax revenue generated by the hospitality industry. I support your decision to require the applicant move through a new application process with public oversight for their changes. I applaud y'all for hearing and understanding the concerns of the residents of this area. Myself and the residents are not opposed to these developments. We simply want to ensure their presence doesn't hurt the quality of life for the people who live within feet of these structures. I still hope to work with the Commission and Planning Department to add reasonable guidelines that will protect the health and well-being of my neighbors. Hawthorne is my forever home, and I dream of a prosperous and well-planned future for our city. As commissioners, you get to set the tone for that future, and I appreciate your willingness to listen to the people. Thank you again. Sincerely, Megan Mitchell.
Thank you. Is that the only one?
Yes, that is the only.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now move on to the Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar. And there are no items for that. So now we'll recess the Airport Zoning Commission. We'll have the Planning Commission consent calendar. One item is consideration of Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission minutes for the regular meeting of May the 5th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, please call for the vote.
Chairperson Smith.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Al-Shanable.
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz is absent. Commissioner Caraveo.
Yes.
And Commissioner Richard.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Continued public hearings. There are no items. New public hearings. Zone Text Amendment number 2021 ZA02. Now is a time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment 2021 ZA-02. Art Basmakian, will present a staff report.
Thank you, Chair Smith and Planning Commission. Art Bashmakian, Interim Assistant Planning Director. This project is a city-initiated amendment to Title 17 zoning, addressing mixed-use standards and guidelines as contained in Chapter 17.87 Mixed-Use Overlay Zone and Appendix B in the Hawthorne Municipal Code. The amendment clarifies circumstances where vertical mixed use is mandatory, thereby disallowing horizontal mixed-use development, and reinforces the definition of what constitutes a unified and integrated horizontal mixed-use development project. At the February 9th, 2021 City Council meeting, the council discussed some past projects, mixed-use projects that were approved, and they give examples of projects where retail was on one end of a site and a residential on a totally different area of the project site. And it was mentioned that the conventional understanding of mixed use involves retail on the ground floor with commercial above. So there were concerns about the type of project that had been previously approved in the past, and concern about the quality of that particular development. There were also comments from the council members regarding the minimum amount of commercial space in mixed use projects. Numbers were floated like 40% or 45% of a development should be commercial. There were also comments made that a mixed-use project should have more than just one tenant space. So that's the context of where this is coming from. So mixed-use projects are typically defined as either vertical mixed-use, meaning that the ground floor consists of retail with residential above, or as horizontal mixed-use, meaning two or more attached or detached buildings of differing use categories, such as residential and commercial, within the same project area. So Hawthorne's code, like most other codes in most other cities, allows both types. So to preclude the type of projects council has raised and has concerns about, staff has made a number of recommendations with regards to the code. So one recommendation is to modify the purpose statement in the code under the mixed-use overlay zone. And that's the section that pretty much starts discussing what the purpose of the mixed-use zone is, that mixed-use developments can be horizontally or vertically integrated, and it describes the type of uses. Then there's a sentence at the end that says the project area may encompass a single parcel or multiple parcels planned and constructed as one coordinated and unified project. That sentence is critical because it talks about that the project has to be coordinated, unified, not disjointed, like the example that council had raised at the meeting. So one suggestion is, the key word is to eliminate the word may and replace it with shall, because with the word may, that allowed the city to approve a project that did not coordinate and unify. The other change is adding another sentence to expand on what horizontal mixed use is. So that sentence would read, horizontal mixed use developments shall utilize shared facilities such as driveways, parking areas, plazas, and walkways in order to increase pedestrian use and to allow access across separate properties that unify the various components of the project into a single unified and integrated project. The other changes that are proposed is elimination of the word should and replace it with shall. There are sections of the current ordinance that directs a particular type of development, like vertical development, vertical mixed use, and instead of using the word should, by using the word shall, again, it reinforces and mandates that certain areas that the city wants to see vertical development to ensure that that's the case. Some other sections of the code that talks about horizontal mixed use, we're adding an additional language to, again, reinforce the idea of what horizontal should be. For example, there's a sentence that says residential uses should be vertically mixed top ground floor commercial, retail, or office uses, or horizontally mixed or a combination of both. The modification would be to replace the word should with shall and to add verbiage right after horizontal mixed use if designed or when designed as a single unified and integrated project. Again, reinforcing that concept, that idea. The corresponding Appendix B of the zoning code, which contains design guidelines, that's also being modified with similar language to reinforce what horizontal mixed use should be like. Again, a horizontal mixed use development shall utilize shared facilities such as driveways, parking areas, plazas, and walkways in order to increase pedestrian use and to allow access across separate properties that unify the various components of the project into a single unified integrated project. Although council discussed standards such as having a minimum percentage of commercial and mixed use retail, the current code appears to provide sufficient regulations to require proper amount of commercial that are consistent with typical standards that are found in other cities. In fact, Hawthorne is more restrictive with regards to mandating commercial component than some other cities. For example, the current code prohibits residential uses on the first floor of a building fronting a collector or arterial street. The code further stipulates that in horizontal mixed-use developments, residential uses shall not front a collector or arterial street. The code currently requires a minimum amount of commercial space in a building footprint, which varies from 30% to 50% depending on the size of the project area. Another important development standards in the code is a provision that requires commercial and mixed-use building to be oriented along major streets and that a minimum of 50% of the ground floor street frontage along major arterial be developed with commercial storefronts. Since residential is not allowed on the ground floor facing an arterial, the remaining 50% can be a single-use commercial space or office space. This essentially requires that 100% of the ground floor facing an arterial should not contain residential uses. This is a lot more restrictive than actually some other codes that I've looked at. So the current code and the guidelines have strong language that advocate quality development. With the replacement of words such as may and should with shall, and with that additional design criteria for horizontal mixed-use projects, staff believes council's concerns will be alleviated. Staff's recommendation is for the Planning Commission to adopt the attached resolution, recommending that City Council adopt a notice of exemption and the zone text amendment. The Planning Commission could also provide staff further direction to further research the matter or modify the draft language and return with the revised ordinance reflecting the Commission's direction. And also the Planning Commission could reject this proposed amendment and direct staff to return with a resolution recommending denial of the zone text amendment. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? This is a time for questions of staff only. Anyone have any questions? Staff? Okay.
I had a question. So the section of the code that we're modifying, does that only relate to the specific focus areas for the mixed use, or is that for any mixed use area?
It's for the focus areas, which are within the chapter 1787, which is the mixed use overlay zone. So it addresses the mixed use overlay zone altogether. And then within that chapter, there's a section 17.87030, which discusses those 4 different focus areas.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. No one else?
Yeah, I think my question was answered. I found it.
I'm sorry?
As I think my question was, I was going to ask Art if I could see the text, but I found it on the agenda, so we're all
Okay, thank you. There's no applicant involved in this,
No,
right?
it's city initiated.
So is there anyone who wishes to address the commission on this issue?
There is no one in the room.
No, okay. So, Mr. Secretary, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications?
No, there are not.
Okay. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or question from staff?
Yeah, I had some more questions about it. I noticed in, let's see, so it's the second paragraph under the purpose of 17.87.010, where it starts off as such buildings do not need to be on the same parcel or even on the same block, but must be within the same project area. And it kind of gets weird because it says that the mixed use project doesn't need to be on the same block. But then you go down to the end of that paragraph, it says a project area shall encompass a single parcel or multiple parcels planned and constructed as one coordinated and unified project. So, I mean, it sounds like in that last sentence that we want the project area to be this confined space and not like blocks away, unless you guys are interpreting it differently. So we might want to, do an adjustment to that paragraph where it says that they can be blocks away. Maybe, keep it on the same block or. I mean, it sounded like the council had issue with it being across the street. And maybe if they're able to design it in a way where it's, bridged together or maybe across an alley. Because even when we're talking about the other section where they should be utilizing same parking areas, driveways and plazas, that sounds like it's in a confined space, not, blocks away.
Yes, Commissioner Careva, you bring up a very good point. And in fact, we've actually had to deal with that language with the inquiry from months ago. As I'm looking at that, and I recognize that's existing code, and I think it would be appropriate to definitely modify that to minimize a conflict that I could see. To read that such buildings do not need to be on the same parcel, that's appropriate because there's language that recognizes that it could be on different parcels, but the key thing, it has to be this unified development. So maybe eliminating or even on the same block, I don't know if that's really necessary. I would think that we could just strike that out and just leave, but must be within the same project area, because that's a little confusing. What do you mean that it has to be on the same block? And so if that helps, I don't know if that.
So you're proposing to remove where it says the same block.
Yeah, because if that you could have one part in one block and another part of the mixed use on another block. That's how one could read, and I don't think you would be able to have an integrated, unified project if you're on separate blocks. So I think it's not necessarily, if you have such a large development where you're going to be encompassing multiple blocks, it's still going to be unified, integrated, so it's not necessary to even have that phrase because it could be confusing. So
and then I'm not sure how to word it, because I don't want it to be where we have a development where they're kind of building around one particular property. Like if one person doesn't want to sell and they just they box in this, one particular property. similar to like how we have the issue in that the hotel area where some of the hotels are being built around these small parcels and kind of locking them in. And maybe exploring some type of a text that would kind of prevent developers from doing that, where it maybe has to be like continuous, continuous adjoined parcels along the same street frontage. That way that they're not, blocking in just one particular parcel if that person isn't trying to sell. Do you
Yeah,
understand what I'm?
that's a little bit of a different situation, because if somebody is not interested in selling their property and there's a developer ultimately submits a plan, if that plan has merit and it does meet the standards, I don't know if it would be appropriate, if I understood you correctly, to somehow force, but you can't force if the other person's not selling it. They definitely would all agree that if that property was also integrated would be better, but in some situations that doesn't happen. And I don't know if the city would be happy to not have anything because it's not all integrated, then have something that's still a good project and it's better. Again, that's my thought.
Are you talking about maybe there's a landowner who's holding out, and so you have like this U-shaped project area because in the middle there's someone holding out, and I experienced that in another city, and I don't think we could force the hand on. We were basically had to build around him. That was the project, but Melissa, I don't think we could do. I don't know. Maybe that's something we have to look at. Because Art's right. I mean, you'd hate to not do a good development, and there's one holdout. Hopefully it comes around, but you could continue to do a good development even though you have something like that. Otherwise, I think you put the other landowner at the mercy of somebody else, and that just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
And then I had another question about the percentage. So it sounded like in that council meeting that they were asking for like 40%. And I mean that might actually be kind of high if you're talking about an entire development. And then I'm not sure if were they talking about 40% of the entire development or 40% of just the first floor. I mean, it sounds like the code covers that the first floor needs to be commercial. So I'm just not sure if the council was looking for more than just the first floor for commercial, because if you're talking about 40% of the project, that's going to be more than just the first floor. So I guess that would be just my only concern is how would we go about doing that? Or getting clarification on that.
That item actually we have discussed, because as you rightfully said, council did not specify if it was 40% of the project or 40% ground floor. As you correctly stated, the 40% of the project, that may not work for a number of reasons. You might be spreading commercial into a residential area, which I don't think that's the intent, because to meet the 40%, you might have to develop. And secondly, getting commercial into a residential area, or you're not fronting an arterial, it's not going to be economically feasible. You're not going to have frontage. No one's going to develop it that way. And then thirdly, I have to say, then if you are forcing second, third floor, unless if they're offices, retail for the most part historically does not work in a multi-story building.
Yeah.
And looking at other cities, other codes, it's primarily the ground floor that cities are after, and they want to maintain that commercial component and have minimum requirements. And as you said, our code does require that on the ground floor facing the arterials, you can't have residential, which means that by default, 100% has to be commercial. As I mentioned earlier, 50% has to be commercial tenant, retail tenant space. So I guess the other 50% could be office. It could be a single-use commercial space. So maybe when this matter does reach council, then obviously they will be able to provide their direction or comments at that time. But that was our take and understanding.
Okay. And then how does for the other areas that are not the focus areas, does the code read the same where it mentions that they can be like blocks away, the development?
I think the only place that verbiage is used is that in, I believe, the purpose statement, which could be again modified, so there's no confusion. I don't think it mentions anywhere else in the code.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, we will go through the code, and if there's another section that says on the same block, it may be another language like that in the appendix, because the appendix does mimic what's in the code, then that section will be also modified.
Okay. Okay, so I'll now formally close the public hearing on this item. Call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on the item. So do I have a motion recommending that the City Council adopt a notice of exemption and zone text amendment?
I don't know, was that the motion we were making, or were we asking, because Jason did come up with some important points there, so were we not coming up with a motion to say we want staff to do those things and then that's what we'd be approving, or am I confused?
I had a hard time hearing.
Sorry, so I'm
Richard.
hearing with just given the fact that Jason had pointed out a few other things in the code that may or may not need to be changed, I don't know that those were contained in what we were presented with initially. So would the motion then be to accept it with those changes that you suggested, or am I missing something?
Yes. Commissioner Caraveo, did you want to make that as part of your motion?
Yeah, to make the changes specifically for getting rid of the where it talks about it can be located on separate blocks. So
okay.
changing that language.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
That would be the motion, and then whoever would second it. It's basically an interlineation. We can make that additional change and make that part of the approval.
So Commissioner Richard, do you want to make the motion, or?
I think.
Okay, then I'll second.
Go for it, yeah.
Okay.
For the secretary, please call for the vote.
Yes, Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Al-Shanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz is absent, Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Richard.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Next item is design review application, excuse me, number 2021 DR04. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider design review application number 2021 DR04. Art Pasmakian will present a staff report.
Actually, a correction, it will be Maria Maher.
Maria Maher.
Oh, okay. Maria, you're up.
Can you hear me?
No, we just heard you. But
Okay, I apologize, commissioners. Technical difficulties. I just want to make sure that you can see the entire screen of my PowerPoint presentation.
yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, commissioners. I will be presenting design review application 2021 DR04, and this is for the veterans housing that is proposed on the property just south of 14115 Corderi. You're very familiar with that property. There is a church there currently, but the lot right adjacent to it, south of it, is a vacant lot. And this is to orient you to the zoning and the vicinity map. As you can see from the zoning and vicinity map, the subject site is highlighted in yellow. It is zone C3 with a mixed use overlay. And properties surrounding the lot, to the north is a church, and there's some apartment buildings, and a little further north there's Jim Thorpe Park. Across the street from the subject side, you will see primarily apartment buildings, and south of the subject site, there are commercial developments. There's a shopping strip right next to it with various types of uses within it, and to the west, although it is industrial, there's a dialysis center and there's apartment buildings to the west of it. And there's also an auto repair use there. So that's just to give you an overview of what is in the surrounding area. The current site conditions, as I mentioned, it is a vacant lot, primarily dirt lot with some landscaping, but because it's vacant, it's really insignificant. As you can see, there's some palm trees that are there. There's a fence there, and there's a small portion that does have some asphalt on it, but it's not very well kept. It's just a vacant lot primarily. The proposed development, I do want to talk about the proposed development. It is to approve 7 modular buildings that will be connected by breezeways. There's a combination of outdoor and indoor gathering spaces. As you can see from this rendering, it's only 2 stories. It works well with the surrounding area. It's not truly high density. There's only 18 units that are being proposed on this lot. So like I said, it's 7 modular buildings, 19 units total. 18 are for veterans and 1 is for an on-site property manager. There will be a multi-purpose room, a lobby, a mail room, and an outdoor-indoor gathering space. One of the things I do want to mention is that although the applicant is providing 10 parking stalls, Assembly Bill 1763 does not require parking for affordable housing projects, which this would be affordable housing projects and specifically rental units. So although the applicant is providing 10 parking spaces, they truly are not required. So we are thankful that they are providing that, which will be nice as this project does have a multi-purpose room, and it will be a gathering space for meetings and counseling or those types of purposes. And that's the commercial component of this project. As this is a design review, I did want to provide you with the facade that the applicant is proposing. As you can see, it's a modern design, and it consists of flat roofs, corrugated metal panels in a beige color, trellises in warm wood shades, and also large metal windows that will contrast with the beiges that are being proposed. The wrought iron guardrails and fences for the balconies and the entrance to the project will be a dark bronze. And the contrasting shades of beige for the exterior will be made up of the stucco type material for the facade of this project. These are just some of the elevations. As I mentioned, it's only a maximum of 2 stories. 30 feet is the maximum height that is being proposed. So it is well within the area that surrounds it. It fits well with the other buildings. It's not a high density project. It's quite small. The proposed landscaping, there is more details in the packets that I provided, including more photos of the landscaping. They are providing quite a beautiful landscaping in a mix of drought tolerant and native plants that will be planted throughout the project area. They also will be placing beautiful lighting throughout the project site to light the walkways, the parking lot, and in a very nice way. And your packets do provide you with the locations of these types of lightings that are being proposed. With that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission adopt Planning Commission Resolution 2021-11, which will approve the design review application 2021 DR04. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA per 15332 Class 32, which is an infill development on this site. With that, staff concludes staff report, and if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Planning Commission have any questions for the staff? This is time for questions of staff only.
I have a question. Has the use been approved already? Or is it just for the design?
The use has been approved. It is permitted on this site. It does, and this is just strictly for design review.
Okay, and then I was just curious because, so how was this approved? I didn't see any commercial. I mean, I know the report mentioned that there's commercial. I mean, is there commercial in this lot?
Yes, the area where the multi-purpose room is and the office, that is the commercial component for this project. That portion is not only for the residents, but it's also for any meetings that the site may be having, because it is a veterans housing project. So they are going to be providing counseling services and anything related to assisting veterans on site or those who may be coming in for information and guidance. And that is the commercial component for this project.
So it's more like an office type space?
Right, and a gathering space for multiple types of services that veterans may need.
Okay, is that all your questions?
And then, so I was looking at 17.29.040 A1. It mentions that, let's see, the minimum lot area for a mixed-use development shall be 130,680 square feet, so about 3 acres. Where there is insufficient lot area for a mixed-use development, only commercial uses may be developed. I believe this lot is definitely less than 3 acres. So I'm just trying to figure out how they allowed for the residential.
Right, so it is less than 3 acres, Commissioner. The city does own the lot, does own the property, and certain aspects throughout the code, the city is exempt from the regulations. And as this is an affordable project for a veterans housing, there was an RFP, a request for proposal, that was sent out. This is how this project is permitted, and therefore we are able to make this possible on this property.
Okay. And I noticed that the commercial, I mean, not the commercial, the transformer is located in the front. I think I would want to see that towards the back of the property, not along the front.
Okay, so we can certainly, we do have the Skid Row Housing Trust members here that can address that and to see if that transformer can be moved or camouflaged in some way so that it's not a focus in the front.
Okay. And then I noticed that you did mention about the parking, that it's not necessarily required. But I do know that, in this area is pretty dense. And, definitely the city of Hawthorne has a issue with street parking. And I'm very familiar with that area. I know a lot of people park at night in that parking lot down the street. So they're, definitely going to have, issues with parking. And I would suggest that they provide more on-site parking because, they're definitely going to have, issues with street parking.
So
and that's mainly just, I guess, towards the the applicant, letting them know that.
Right. So this project did go before the city council, and the agreement was to provide 10 parking spaces. Although it is not required, it was determined that the 10 parking spaces would be sufficient, as this is an affordable project for veterans, most of which will not have a vehicle. And that was the reasoning behind the 10 parking stalls.
Yeah, that's all of my questions.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to speak?
Hey, yes, we are. We're here and we're available to address any questions. My name is Armin Nishat. I'm here from Skid Row Housing Trust, and then we also have Jaime Olmos and Mane Ristakian, who are the architects from KFA. Regarding parking, that is something that has come up. So one thing that we do also kind of do want to note is that this is not just an affordable housing project. It's specifically a permanent supportive housing project. So kind of like Maria noted, the incomes on this will be very low, kind of as a result of requirements in the RFP. So the income requirements on here will be 30% AMI, which is it's one of the lowest amounts yet set by HUD. It's specifically the extremely low income designation. So for the 1-bedroom units, an individual living on their own, the maximum they could earn in 1 year and live in one of these units would be $23,700. To put that into perspective, at minimum wage, that would be the equivalent of earning or of working 30 hours a week at minimum wage. And for the 2-bedroom units, or for individuals with, or for units with 2 individuals living there, the max that they could earn combined would be $27,050, which would be the equivalent of both of them working a combined number of 34 hours a week at minimum wage. So if, say, it's 2 individuals and they're both working 20 hours a week, they would actually not be eligible for these units. And so that's kind of where it gets at the incomes being so low, and just statistically, when you see both with permanent supportive housing and then also for these income levels, you just don't see the levels of car ownership that you have. So in our other projects, we'll have developments or projects with, say, 100 units or 50 units, and we'll still have about 4 to 5 parking spaces total. But part of the reason we do that is just because we just see kind of time and time again that when you have incomes at this low, you just don't see the car ownership rates, just because it's it's very expensive to buy a car, even if you're working full-time minimum wage, let alone less than minimum wage. With regard to kind of the question about the transformer, I'm going to turn that over to Jaime and Mane, since they're working on our design. They could probably answer that better than I could.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. Regarding the transformer, I also would love to hide it in the back of a lot. So based on our experience working in multiple municipalities with the utility company, they have certain requirements of being able to access, install, and service the transformer, which requires that it's right near the street. So what we have provided is landscape and fence screening around it. Just to reiterate, we don't really get to decide where we'd like to put it. It just has to be along the front somewhere. So we put it all the way in one corner where it would be, we thought, less noticeable.
Yeah, so I know Edison usually approves the locations of transformers. Have you guys looked into placing in the back and seeing if they would approve that, or is that just?
We haven't initiated conversation with them about this specific project yet, and we will definitely ask because it doesn't hurt to ask. Based on our experience, that's not typically I've never seen it approved to put it in the back. If there was an alley and we had alley access, then it's possible, but I haven't seen it in the back or in any other conditions.
Or would it be possible like below grade in the front?
Below grade vaults, we typically will do in more urban environments where like you have a high-rise building and they'll have a vault. It's quite expensive because it needs ventilation, mechanical ventilation. I haven't seen it. I can't say I've seen it for a project like this. I've only seen them in high-rise conditions.
Okay. So yeah, if we can, definitely explore, placing it in the back or maybe even behind that first building, so that way it's not too far from the front, so that we can access it and just get clarification from the utility company to see if those options would be sufficient compared to placing it in the front. And then, as far as the parking, I've driven around the city and any other cities too, and I've seen a lot of people with out housing, and they live in cars. So I mean, just because somebody can't afford to buy a new car doesn't mean they not have access to a vehicle. And in the city of Hawthorne, we do have a big problem on street parking and not having enough parking available to the residents. And this area is very dense, and there's a lot of apartment buildings. And I've actually tried to park in that area before visiting a friend, and it's very difficult to find parking. And I'm sure, people now after coming home from work are going to have difficulty, finding parking even more with these units coming in and not having sufficient on-site parking. I know that it's not, allowed and that this has already been approved, but, just, letting you guys know that, that might definitely be an issue for your tenants and the rest of the community in that area.
Right. No, we appreciate the feedback. We for this project, it's kind of like, as we noted, or I don't believe this was stated, but per actually city instructions, we actually did a full parking survey to actually kind of come up with a good number for this project. And so for this one, we have about a 55% parking stall capture rate. So 55% of units would actually have a parking stall available. Usually the industry standard kind of for both this area, for both the area as well as for this income is usually about 5 to 10%. But then also, kind of as Maria noted earlier, with back and forth with the council, we actually end up more than doubling our the total number of parking spaces we have. We initially had 3 to 4, and now we've proposed 10. But no, definitely we definitely do appreciate the note, and that's something we'll keep an eye on moving forward.
And then did that survey include the commercial component of this site too?
Yeah, so it was for, the survey was specifically for permanent supportive housing. There is a bit of a twist in that the city of Hawthorne actually has 0 units of permanent supportive housing for the homeless within its city limits. So we had to do a lot of neighboring things as well. But yeah, for those developments, they were ones that did include similar to what we're proposing, so on-site services. And so it was for ones that were similar in size, those were larger in size, and those that, but they did include, similar services. And similar space for the services specifically.
Okay.
There was, I'm sorry, go.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna point out a few things that we noticed in the packet that that KFA actually noticed, our architects noticed, that we wanted to clarify. So when we submitted our application, we had these things that were correct. It's just there's a few discrepancies in the packet. So one thing that we wanted to note is that this building, we're not going to be using modular construction. We're going to be using kind of more traditional construction methods. It's just, there had been some talk initially about whether or not to use modular, because for larger projects, it tends to be cheaper at scale. But because this is an 18-year project, we would actually lose the economies of scale. So we will be using kind of a more traditional construction method. We're not providing a 15-foot front yard setback. Our site plan shows a 5-foot 0-inch front yard setback. And then a few other things. So we won't be using corrugated metal panels. We'll be using standing seam metal roof. And then instead of wrought iron guardrails, the guardrails and fences will be of a metal material, but we haven't specified wrought iron. Another note that we had is, I guess there's a few times on here where it's noted that, or it's stated that we'll be using modular, but we're not, again, we're not using modular construction. Jaime, Mane, are there any other notes that I'm missing so far, or did I cover it all?
I think that's everything on our list.
If I may, through the chair, I just want to say that, I understand that this is affordable housing, and I just want to commend you on the beautiful design. This is absolutely beautiful. I mean, very thoughtful, and I mean, it's going to look beautiful, and something that's done for veterans. I know that sometimes they're forgotten, and I just really feel really passionate about this. Thank you for everything that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission on the issue? Okay. Mr. Secretary, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications? Did we lose him?
No, there are not.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on this item or questions from staff?
I had one more question. I was trying to see if we can get, if there's a picture of that transformer area.
Let me go back. I'm not sure if we can actually see it.
I might be able to help. In this image, it would be on the right, the green corner. You can make out a fence enclosure around the transformer.
Ah, thank you.
I think it was on another slide too. It was just kind of small. It showed like the front facade.
Let me Let me try and get to it there.
Yeah, that one.
Right here on the west elevation, or wait, hold on.
It'll probably be the east.
The east elevation.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the east elevation.
Okay.
So it is camouflaged with the fence and the vegetation.
Shrubbery.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I now formally close the public hearing on this item. Call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on the item. So do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve. I mean, is it something that we approve? Is it just a design review, Maria, Ms. Maharik?
Yes, yes, it is. This is
So-
for the approval of design review with the corrections noted by the applicant for the materials.
Okay, then I'll move to approve.
I'll second it.
Can we add that they at least research or reach out to the utility company to see about relocating the transformer? And if the utility company isn't, support, then they can keep it where they have it proposed.
Yes, Commissioner, we will follow through with the applicant about the transformer.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call for the vote?
Yes, Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson El Shanable,
Yes.
Commissioner Ortiz is absent, Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
Commissioner Richard.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, we'll recess the planning commission and call back to order the airport zoning commission. Airport zoning commission consent calendar. There are no items. Airport zoning commission new continued public hearings. There are no items. Call back to order the planning commission concurrently with the airport zoning commission. Non-public hearing items. There are none. Administrative items, Zone Text Amendment 2021 ZA01, final version of modified text amendment to design guide for highest density residential and mixed use development. Section 3.3, development standard multiple designations.
Maria, can you stop sharing? Oh, okay, thank you.
So yes, Chair Smith and Planning Commission. At your last meeting, you conducted a public hearing and recommended approval of a zone text amendment that is being forwarded to the City Council for its consideration. And we added additional language that addresses some of the questions that were raised by the Planning Commission. So the modified text stipulates that if a single building occurs in more than one zone, the more restrictive zoning standards would apply to the entire building. Because I remember there were questions about having different standards on the same building, and if that may affect the design. So hearing that, we decided to add that additional language, and that additional language version is the version going to the City Council. And the recommendations for the Planning Commission to receive and file this report, but if you do have concerns or questions, by all means, we wanted to have that opportunity presented to you. Thank you.
Anybody have any concerns or questions about it? Okay, then we'll move on to the items to be placed on future agendas. Pre-agenda for the meeting on July 7th will be a zone text amendment, major, minor modification. So we'll go to commissioner reports. Any of the commissioners have anything you would like to report?
If I may, I just have a question for staff. Now that the governor has reopened California, does that mean that our next meeting is going to be in person?
Not yet, Vice Chair. I believe, I'll take direction from the city manager who gets his direction from the council, but I believe they're looking toward the end of July,
Okay.
if not after July. So, but we'll keep you apprised of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any reports?
So with that, the meeting, the item that we had today, was it public notice, the amendment?
The administrative item was for discussion. There's no action taken by the planning commission. This is an action that will be taken by the city council, and that will be publicly noticed.
Okay.
So right now you're on commissioner reports, I guess, at this point.
And I just wanted to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Oh, especially you.
Yeah. This will be my first official, Father's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the baby sleep.
Oh my goodness.
That is adorable.
He's a little over 2 months now and 10 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is he nursing or?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good.
Congratulations.
Commissioner, he doesn't even wake up.
Yeah. He's in a milk coma.
Adorable.
So if there isn't anything further from the commissioners, these meetings will be adjourned at 7:11 p.m.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
Father's
you,
Day,
everyone.
everyone.
Happy
Take
Father's
care.
Day.